Hi guys, right, quick one. We've all spoken about the ACPO Association of Chief Police Officers Guidance on Public Photography. We all know what it says. I'll leave a link in the description to the letter itself so you can read it for yourself. My problem with it is this. Prior to this guidance coming out, which was 26th of August 2010, and it's still in force, I've contacted the NPCC, who replaced ACPO on the 1st of April 2015, and they have said that that guidance has not been amended and it's still in place. Right, so that guidance has been in place for just over 8.5 years. So, my problem with it is that when it came out in August 2010 was in a response to a demonstration by photographers, mainly in London, who, under the Section 44, which has been repealed, it allowed police officers to search anybody without reasonable suspicion who they suspected of being a terrorist. Now, the police were targeting photographers, primarily, under this Terrorism Act. Now, Liberty took up a campaign against the government on this, and it was also secured through the European Court, which declared that Section 44 was unlawful because it had no element of reasonable suspicion. It was purely because if a police officer just decided you might be a terrorist, they could just search you without any reasonable suspicion whatsoever. Completely unlawful. And it took, you know, thousands of photographers that went to Trafalgar Square, and if you look it up on YouTube or any other channels as well, you'll see it on there. Put in "I'm a photographer, not a terrorist," and you'll see it up there, and you'll get various links to lots and lots of videos about those demonstrations by photographers in London. As a result, the government had to withdraw Section 44 of the Terrorism Act and replace it with Section 43, which clearly states that police have to have a reasonable suspicion that you are a terrorist to search you, detain you under that act. But time and time again, whenever any of this legislation is brought out, the police either don't know it, which is unacceptable, or know it and completely ignore it, which is unacceptable, right? So you've only got to look at the barracks audit myself and Spitshine did, where, you know, they detained us under the Terrorism Act, they searched us under the Terrorism Act, they found nothing, and still wouldn't let us go. The reason they didn't let us go was because we stood up for our rights not to identify ourselves, and that's what got the police all butthurt. That's what it was. It was just a complete contempt of cop, or what they believed was contempt of cop. I was threatened on no less than 4 occasions by one officer in that video who threatened to arrest me for not identifying myself, which is utter bollocks, right? So, again, potentially that police officer broke the law. Under the 2015, I believe it is, 2015 Criminal Courts and Justice Act, an officer commits an offence if they threaten to use a power or privilege for gain. All right, and I'll explain this. Gain. You need to look up the definition of the word gain. All right? She wanted to gain my identity by threatening to use a power or privilege, i.e. the power of arrest. Threatening to use a power of arrest to gain my identity, which I did not have to give her. Right? So potentially the police officers there broken the law. That could be up to 9 years in prison for that police officer. So, you know, it's not hard to learn this legislation. It's written in English, and if there's any difficult words we don't understand, we can use the internet to understand the language. It's not hard. So going back to this main problem, so when Section 44 was replaced with Section 43, they're still abusing their privilege, or their perceived sense of privilege, you know, to question people taking photographs in a public place. I have not, and still cannot find, after 1 year of searching, any court case in the UK where a terrorist has been caught taking photographs in a public place. It's never happened. As far as I'm aware, it's never happened. Absolutely not. So, now, going back, my main gripe with this, the fact that these police officers don't know what they can and can't do with regards to public photography, again, is either a lack of training, which is unacceptable, a lack of knowledge of their own guidance on public photography, which is unacceptable, or they know what their guidance is, they know what the law is, and they just choose to ignore it and still do the same thing time after time after time to people taking pictures in a public place. Now, here's my main gripe with the Association of Chief Police Officers Guidance on Public Photography. Is one whole A4 page long, containing 2 paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points, and it came out 8 years ago. Now, if it was 15 pages long of legal argument and blah 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 blah, and loads of, you know, legal jargon, or legalese as they call it, and it only came out 4 weeks ago, I could understand police officers not knowing it or being unaware of it. But it came out 8 odd years ago, 8.5 years ago almost, and it is one piece of A4 with 2 paragraphs and 5 bullet points. That's it. How hard can it be to learn that? I'd teach that to my 8-year-old niece. Is clever enough to learn that. My 8-year-old niece understands the ACPO guidelines on public photography. She's 8 years old. I'll have to do an interview with her. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's my problem with the ACPO letter. So I think what I'm going to do in future is I'm going to go proactive, and I'm just going to go out and give it directly to the police officers, because I was detained under Section 43 for taking pictures in a public place. Spit was detained under the same act. I've had, on 2 occasions, or only one I videoed, but on 2 occasions I've had threats to take my camera under the Terrorism Act. There is no provision under the Terrorism Act to seize my camera, and they cannot seize your camera or any of your recordings or delete any footage without a court order. It's as simple as that. But I've yet had a sergeant in the Sussex Police Force threaten to take my camera under the Terrorism Act, which there is no provision whatsoever. So that's my problem with the ACPO letter. How can you not understand some guidance that's 2 paragraphs long with 5 fucking bullet points? It can't be that hard to learn. Because either they're not teaching it to them, which is unacceptable, or they're teaching them to it and they're choosing to ignore it, and that's also unacceptable. And that's my gripe with the ACPO letter. See you all soon. Take care.